I think that I have to discover it myself, and this is one of the things that led me into this story, into this film, that I want to discover how the 80s were really happening in Poland. I like to know the details, and I think that because I wasn't there, that means that maybe I can show it in a different way. And one of the reasons that I want to make this film is that I wanted to make a film that's something new, and nobody did it like this before. So I believe that there's some kind of a fresh perspective in it, but we're still at the very beginning of the discussion, because we're here, that's the world premiere, and I am very curious about the reactions, especially in Poland, because it can go any way actually. I've never thought about this story as a potential documentary film. I did my first fiction film, The Last Family, 5 years ago, and I was looking for a story, for something for my next film. And this book came out, and my producers passed it to me, and I read it, and I said, yeah, that's worth filming, definitely. It's an important story, and I think it had to be fiction because for example, I wanted to work with the scene at the police station. And this is something that you can't actually really show in a documentary. I wanted to, recreate it, to go through every aspect, every detail of it. And I felt that there are some universal things that can work. But because I've never thought about a documentary about Grzegorz Przemyk, it's really hard to name those, differences. For me, films are good or bad. It doesn't really matter if it's a fiction film or if it's a documentary, especially now. The technology changed so much during last decade that you can now shoot a documentary the same way as you're shooting fiction. Actually, you can use the same camera. That wasn't possible in the 90s, for example, right? So now it's changed. But after saying this, I have to say that yeah, I was hoping that I will shoot a documentary, someday. Because of pandemic situations, I did 2 very short documentaries. One of them was a piece that I did for HBO Poland, for this anthology of short films, the pandemic thing. It was called At Home last year. And I did this because we were expecting our second child, our daughter. So we did this very private film shot on iPhone. And that was my really unexpected comeback to the documentary. And this year, because there's a bunch of Kieślowski's anniversary, events. Adam Mickiewicz Institute asked me to make a variation about The Talking Heads by Kieślowski, and I did this very awkward, I might say, filmed through some sort of Zoom, Microsoft Teams kind of thing. Everything was done online. And we asked a lot of filmmakers all around the world, and also some people involved in the production of Kieślowski's films, a lot of actors, to answer the same questions as Kieślowski asked in The Talking Head, and that will be also in Gdynia. I know that's not about Leave No Traces, but I think that's also interesting. After the success of The Last Family, we had this thought with my producers that it would be great to make our next film a co-production. I heard a lot great things about post-production companies from Czech Republic, and we thought that yeah, we might give it a try. We meet with Mikuláš from Background Films in Karlové Vary when Leave No Traces was in development. It was a part of Midpoint feature launch. I think this is when we met for the first time, or Connected Cottbus, one of those events. So that was the beginning of the discussion with Czech Republic. France came on board a bit later, while we were already in production of the film. Le Conte Moderne, who were one of the co-producers of Corpus Christi, which was a previous film of our album film of the main producer of Leave No Traces. They wanted to work on this film, and that was the big question: what we can give them, what part of the creative piece of this film we can get from France. And we found out quite fast that the music composer might be coming from France. So yeah. Well, I can say only about my experience. I think that we're living in a world where co-productions are good possibility to talk more, to go wider in terms of interaction, in terms of going into really strong conversations, both creatively and in terms of production of a film. And you know, I did 2 films, and they both kind of really set into Polish culture, and I wanted them to be international. So both of them in the development had some spots that were opened for people outside Poland, not very far from Poland actually. And Midpoint was a very interesting help. I think it started in Cottbus, on Connecting Cottbus, because we got the Midpoint award there, and that's why we came to Midpoint. So it was, you know, developing from here and there, and all of those places, I just mentioned a few, but there were more, were for me as a director great moments to examine how I see the story, because it's always good to hear it from a different perspective, not very far from ours. And in terms of regional, you know, connection, it's very important. I think it's very important. Maybe not for every project, but for my film, that was quite nice. It's a pleasure to be here, to have a film in main competition, especially this year, because that was a, you know, very strong year with films. And it's great to have, you know, my film somewhere between Almodovar and Sorrentino, you know, stuff like this. That's really an honor. I've never been to Venice Film Festival earlier, and yesterday I came, you know, at 7 a.m. to do technical check, and I saw where the crew is sitting in the theater, and I was like, well, why? And then after the screening later in the afternoon, I realized that this is the place which is kind of a scene too, because if people are clapping and they like the film, they are, you know, turning to the crew, and it's kind of a theatrical situation. Very nice, very emotional for me. So, you know, that's a great start for a film. It's hard to imagine a better place.